Hello everyone, the Package Reviewer here, and as you can see, my sprites have kinda been revamped. Yeah, it may be a bit sloppier than the ones I made with shape tools, but I would consider it an improvement over some sprites. Anyways, a certain user has been on my mind lately. Someone who acts like a Go animator, but doesn't use the program surprisingly enough. The guy named Emoji Marbles. Yes, believe it or not, this guy has almost 8K subscribers. And it happened exponentially in the last year or so. So let's take a look at what content 8,000 people are looking forward to watching. Throughout the over 5,000 videos of Emoji Marbles, his content is nothing special really. All it really consists of is commentaries, random callouts, effect videos, and at its most ambiguous, a by the numbers list of 10,000. I'm not sure how one can keep track of ranking that many entities in one list, especially with specific ones like Cartoon Raw and Evil Apple, Hexagon 32%, 1968, Red V, and 106. Kinda taking by the numbers a little literally there, don't you think? Now, his most prominent category of videos are commentaries, with over a whopping 300 at the time of this video. Let's just see what motivates him to make so many commentaries. There seems to be a common theme within his commentaries. Commentaries on videos giving him negative feedback, commentaries on fail trolls, and commentaries with titles along the lines of Forget It. It's also laughable how he feels the need to commentate on slander videos of all things, basically saying that obviously the claims in those videos are bullshit, making them pointless. A few commentaries I want to tackle are ones that are actually decent videos on him. One's by Cool Speedy Josh, Mr. Noob Returns, and What Are You Doing Here, This Is Good respectively. For the Cool Speedy Josh commentary, this one is probably one of the most tedious ones considering this is the first inclusion of the Mr. Krabs Jambro that was mad funny clip whenever he can't think of a comeback or arguments. Even when Josh wasn't remotely trying to be funny. Josh covers Marbles' Halloween rant by debunking how Marbles hates Halloween just because people wear costumes and how Marbles only wants chocolate for Halloween. When Marbles tried to elaborate on that commentary, he said this.
No, I don't get bored of chocolate, but you do make a great point. I tried Skittles one time, because they will always make me think they were M&Ms because they're disguised M&Ms.
Given the topic of Halloween, wouldn't you be given Skittles and M&Ms in those little packets? It would be more obvious to tell which is which. Besides, don't you know that Skittles are basically the new trans character in the M&Ms lineup? Next, he uses Filthy Frank clips if he once again can't think of a comeback.
He gave out really petty reasons to hate on a holiday, and in this video also showed how much of a coward he is in the process.
Ooh, nobody gives a shit! Let's be real, what Filthy Frank is going to be known for now is to be used in these commentaries to try to be funny but failing miserably, aside from his other persona, Joji. Josh then talks about Marbles' behavior only for him to use the same Mr. Krabs clip a few times. If you were to play a drinking game for every time you used that clip, you would probably die from alcohol poisoning. The last thing Josh says about Marbles is his opinion on the word underage, by saying that's the most controversial thing Marbles has said, with Marbles to say this.
Are you sure about that? Because there's actually way worse things I said rather than that. So I don't know why you think that was the worst thing I said.
I'm not sure why he would feel the need to mention that, and if he truly did say worse shit, I don't know why he didn't provide proof. And when Josh showed how people agreed with Marbles, he questioned this.
Why did you cover the usernames? That's so cringy, really.
Maybe to prevent the inevitability of witch hunting those users, even if they can just go on that video themselves, but whatever, that's cringy. Oh, and about him saying something worse, that will be mentioned later on in this video. For the next commentary, it's on Mr. Noob Returns. And all it basically is Marbles telling Noob to stop being dramatic over and over again. But there is some stuff that he words very poorly.
Just because of my content, bruh, you're being so dramatic. Also, hating on someone because of their content is invalid. Stop being so dramatic over people's content already.
So, if someone were to hate someone who made videos killing their own cat, that's invalid. If they were to hate someone who yells and abuses their kids for clout, that's invalid. And if people hate someone for generally being an unfunny douche, that's invalid. Okay, I know those examples are dead horses, but do you see how that logic fails in those cases? Well then, I guess all my previous rants are useless now given this guy's reasoning. Marbles then points out the so-called hypocrisy of Noob by stating he doesn't talk about two nobodies with a few hundred subscribers or so, who add in very few images in their commentaries like Marbles.
You just said something very hypocritical, because you don't even bash users like ScienceGuy722 or Jeffrey the Idiot. They do the same thing in their commentaries.
Yeah, you wonder why people would talk about someone with 8,000 subscribers instead. And sorry to disappoint you guys, but literally the rest of this video is just calling Noob dramatic and really adding nothing to the video. So I'm stopping it here. But then there's what are you... Actually, I'll just call him Waithig, since it's not as lengthy. Anyways, let's tackle Marble's commentary on Waithig's review. Skipping to the part where he gets into his channel.
So, Emoji Marbles.
Why are you using music? And also, you do realize that I can tell you that you're obviously editing how much subs I have, because I don't have 4 million subs.
Maybe he doesn't want the video to sound empty? Also, it's not edited, it's in Portuguese.
He's still the same terrible gonut mature idiot from 2016.
Only because I have autism. The only reason why I sometimes act immature, because I have autism, and autism can cause people to not act like their age.
Oh boy, the goddamn autism card. You do realize not everyone who is neurodivergent intentionally acts immature, right? I mean, look at Jerry Seinfeld, Eminem, Tim Burton, etc. And throughout the video, he constantly calls Waithig a liar whenever he says something negative towards Marbles, even if he's not wrong in any way. So that's riveting commentary. Waithig tackles his least favorite list, and I just want to point out how he hates the Walter White state, 100 Gex state, and Barack Obama state respectively, and likes the Family Guy state instead.
Right. Kinda cringe.
Waithig then tackles the commentary-ception on Marbles, who is so oblivious to the irony.
One thing that he does in his commentaries is that when someone says that this thing sucks, he always says, "Can you please explain why?" And when someone actually explains why this thing sucks, he always uses a shitty overused media clip. And
Nobody gives a shit.
how can you say that the guy that made the masterpiece known as Kalo Error is bad at making content? Also stop using shitty media clips because it doesn't prove your point.
Liar, liar, plants for hire.
Why is Marbles so obsessed with that Jim Carrey movie? Also, it's pants on goddamn fire. Get it right, man. Nothing special for the rest of the commentary, so I'll leave it off there. And to make up for the length of the Mr. Noobus Returns coverage, I'll tackle one more commentary on Waithig, his last video on emoji marbles.
I use media clips since they can be funny, and it will make the commentary more funnier, and I don't repeat the same thing over and over again, I say different stuff sometimes.
Dude, you constantly use the same media clip 100 times and add absolutely nothing of value to the commentary.
Gee, no wonder why many people keep trolling him. And speaking of trolls, the way that he responds to trolls.
Imagine using troll in the wrong context.
I mean, what else would you call someone who intentionally gets a rise out of you by making pointless commentaries and callouts? And remember how Marbles claimed that he said worse stuff than how he hated the word underage? Well, here it is.
Oh, so now you're gonna call me a criminal supporter, huh? Well, guess what? I can support whoever I want to, unless it's a serial killer. But still, criminals can be forgiven.
So let me get this straight. You said that criminals can be forgiven.
To be extremely fair though, the people who are claiming are criminals aren't actually criminals, instead, they use criminal in the wrong context, so take that.
Yeah, except that Waithig is referring to actual goddamn criminals. Jeffrey Epstein, Charles Manson, EDP445, they can be forgiven? He then goes into depth about Marbles fandom, and Marbles makes more terrible takes.
One of the many excuses they say is that not everyone is going to handle hate, so therefore you shouldn't say that to him.
It's true though, not everyone has to handle hate and criticism, it will take people fully time to do it.
Criticism is literally one of the fundamentals of life, especially if you want to be an artist, musician, designer, etc. If it's really too much to handle, just take it with a grain of salt or ignore it altogether. If you choose not to change, that is. Waithig then makes a good point about how Marbles handles negative feedback in his commentaries, and this is what he pulled out from his deck of comebacks.
Wow, just absolutely wow. First you used troll in the wrong context, now you're using immature in the wrong context. Also, if I handled in an immature way, then I would have raged in all caps just like Brian Griffin's YouTube channel. Go get your facts straight about what immature really is.
You know another way of handling it immaturely? Constantly contradicting whoever is making a review on you to inflate your ego bigger. That's not going to get you anywhere, buddy. And that is all I have to say about his commentaries. Man, that was a shit show of a roller coaster. But this sadly isn't all. Another thing he milks from the others of his computer are these redundant callouts, most of which is him getting r/whooshed. Here are a few golden callouts: not taking impersonation seriously, a joke about the target dog, threatening to nuke the country despite not having any sort of access to nuclear weapons, and several ones over being called fatherless. A fair block doesn't seem to be enough for him apparently. I know you're trying to give these users negative attention and all, but even then this just seems unnecessary. Feeding them will most likely get you to call him out more often. For the community posts, he seems to rely on sites like Rotten Tomatoes and IMDb for movie reception, which, I'm sorry, but those sites aren't really that useful in terms of what to like or hate. For this one, it took him a while to come to the realization that spamming isn't punishable by law. I guess he isn't familiar with the prohibition of spam consumption throughout the olden days. He apparently has Josh live rent-free in his head by posting about him from time to time. That rant video from Josh sure is haunting old Marbles, huh? What's so much shocking about Marbles is that despite how long he's been on YouTube, this is apparently the first time he accidentally said the satanic F word, ignoring the fact he uses a Morbillion and Filthy Frank clips with that same word and commentate on people who use it, but go off I guess. But this one is probably one of the worst from him. He questioned how an objectively bad movie has a positive rating on Rotten Tomatoes, which further proves my point on how those sites are unreliable. But even then, he still insists on giving a shit about them. And now, some of the worst factors of Emoji Marbles. Much like anyone with the mindset of a Go animator, his takes aren't very bright to say the least. One example is in his 80 worst movies list. He mostly puts in horror movies, which I can understand why some would hate the genre, but do you have to have it take up 80% of the list? Also, I love how he added in 100 years despite the fact he'll be dead before he even gets the chance to see it in full. He also adds in shit that isn't considered movies at all, like Spiffy Pictures EXE Adventure, Caillou Gets Grounded, and BFB Cape Shit. These masterpieces deserve to be nominated for 74 Emmys. In one of his parts of that 10,000 by the numbers list, he hates Fanta and blueberries just because it could be orange juice and he spilled the blueberries respectively. About the former, it's still orange flavored, and why would it be a trick if it's carbonated in a completely different shade of orange? As for the latter, holding a grudge against freaking blueberries all because you dropped them one time? Next thing you know, you would cry over spilled milk and then end up hating it forever. During the time of the Josh debacle, he thinks that in his infinite wisdom, Josh would be better at rants if he ranted on failed troll nobodies that only Marbles gives a shit about while sounding like Gollum from Lord of the Rings.
Hi, I'm Cool Speedy Josh, the guy that rated the Ridge Rovers live stream. Remember me? The guy that said the N-word?
And remember when he said that criminals can be forgiven? Well, in his ranking Cool Speedy Josh's rants, Marbles clarified that take when talking about his rant on Futuristic Hub that only murders can't be forgiven.
Criminals can still be forgiven, unless they're a killer.
Have you ever considered that pedophilia and rape plays a role in that sentiment as well? I swear, these Nimrods wouldn't know the true definition of a criminal if it struck them in the head. Now, one of the most annoying factors from Emoji Marbles is the fact that he keeps denying that he can't handle any sort of feedback. Most of the time he either contradicts the user he's commentating on or just uses stupid and overused media clips to unsuccessfully prove his point. He most commonly does it on videos ranting on him, even the ones made by trolls who are clearly trying so hard to get a rise out of him, which seems to be working considering how he did them on slander videos of all things. The most notable commentary of where he tries so hard to dodge criticism is the one from Sticks Must Be Consumed. He made a really good point of how inconsistent his editing is by how he flip-flops between editing and screen recording.
Like for example, Emoji Marbles made a commentary on my friend What Are You Doing Here This Is Good, and he used an editing software, yet for this commentary, he used a screen recorder.
But to that, he just says this.
Is there a problem with that? Anyways, I mean, sometimes I feel motivated to use a video editor software. Well, sometimes I also feel motivated using a screen recorder. So really, is that a problem to you?
Yes, he used the I feel like it card. Unless your computer has some problems, I don't see how that even justifies switching between those two methods, especially if one of those has you do the commentary in one take. He then points out how Marbles made the original commentary about an hour after Sticks made his review, and once again dodges criticism by saying this.
So, what's wrong with that? Giving commentaries whenever I want.
Well, Marbles, if you really want to rush your commentaries to have them become a jumbled mess, then so be it. Marbles just keeps getting defensive over feedback for a couple more minutes and then says this about the YouTube in Portuguese.
I don't even speak that other languages, so how am I supposed to know that? You should have told me from the start.
Dude, is using Google Translate really that much of a chore to you? Besides, the fact that the category buttons are in Portuguese should give it away. Jesus Christ, how are you so oblivious to that? Later on in the commentary, Styx questions how Marbles was inevitably interrupted while recording. And you want to know his excuse for doing this instead of editing? Just take a guess.
This is why you should always use an editing software.
I don't have to use always an editing software.
I didn't have to.
Seriously, and besides, I sometimes get interruptions when I use an editing software.
Okay, yeah, you'll be inevitably interrupted while editing as well. But is it better than having someone walk in on you recording, thus making the commentary more of a disaster than it already is? If you really could handle criticism, you would take that and many others into consideration, but as expected, you didn't. Yeah, I know a couple of people already made several videos on this facial expression of a 4/3 pi radius cubed, but his constant insistence on handling criticism and being an overall content farm tempted me to give my 2 cents on him. I seriously don't even get how someone who milks all this content could gain the attention of 8,000 people and yet only have hundreds of views. But then again, the answer to that will probably have to do with the word algorithm. I would have more to say, but really everyone else at this point has made statements on him that haven't been said before. And with that, the rant ends here. Thanks for watching, this is the Package Reviewer, signing off.
Threatened to kill Pichu! Why Pichu? Pichu doesn't deserve it!
Yo, who the fuck put Michael Jackson in the freezer?